Hello everyone, and welcome to our tutorial on how to extract Wikipedia data to Excel using VBA. In our previous video, we delved into the basics of web automation. We learned how to perform Google searches using both Internet Explorer and Google Chrome, automate multiple searches from terms stored in Excel, and even set up an interactive input box for manual searches. In this video, we're going to continue building on those foundational skills by showing you how to extract Wikipedia data to Excel using VBA. We will be focusing on understanding the fundamentals of web scraping as we learn how to pull data from Wikipedia pages directly into Excel, learning how to extract specific information, specifically how to grab only the paragraphs you need, discovering techniques for handling variable page structures to make your code more robust for different Wikipedia layouts, adding resilience to your code by tackling how to handle errors and inconsistencies in web pages, and finally, enhancing your skills by looping for multiple search terms, allowing you to scrape data for several terms in one go. By the end of this video, you'll have the tools you need to expand your web automation skills in VBA. So let's get started. Great, let's get into the first VBA code example. It's in Module 1, and you can see the VBA code right here on the screen. In our previous video, we learned the basics of automating Google searches using VBA in Excel. We explored how to open Google Chrome with a search link containing terms from our Excel sheet. With this VBA script, we're going to take it a step further by starting with the most basic example of fetching data from a web page into Excel. Specifically, this VBA script utilizes Internet Explorer to navigate to the Wikipedia page for the search term found in cell A2 of Sheet 2. In our example, that's tiger. We'll then extract a short description that is actually hidden in the HTML code of the page. While this information doesn't display on the Wikipedia page, it's there, embedded in the code. I'll show you how to find this using the Chrome inspector. Once we've grabbed this hidden description, we'll populate it into cell B2 in the same Excel sheet. Now that we know what we're aiming for, let's get into the details of the code. But before we go any further, remember to enable the Microsoft Internet Controls and Microsoft HTML Object Library references from the Tools menu in the VBA editor. This will ensure that we have all the libraries we need to interact with Internet Explorer and manipulate HTML elements. Alright, let's look at the first line of the code, dim.ie is object. Here we are declaring an Internet Explorer object that will allow us to interact with web pages. The next line, dim.doc as object, is setting up another object to hold the HTML document that we'll be working with. Next, we instantiate our Internet Explorer object. This line of code essentially creates a new instance of Internet Explorer, allowing us to control it via VBA. We also set its visible property to true, making sure that we can see the browser window as the code runs. This is very helpful for debugging and understanding what the code is doing in real time. The following line is quite interesting. What we're doing here is navigating to a specific Wikipedia page. The URL is constructed dynamically by appending the value in cell A2 of Sheet 2, which in our example is tiger. Essentially, if you change the term in cell A2, the code will navigate to the corresponding Wikipedia page for that term. It's a flexible way to search Wikipedia right from Excel. The following line might look a bit cryptic, but it serves a vital function. It ensures that our code will pause until the Internet Explorer application has fully loaded the page. It's a way to make sure we don't try to extract information before the page is ready, which would result in errors or incomplete data. Once the page is fully loaded, we set our doc object with the command setDoc equals ie.document. This essentially captures the HTML structure of the loaded web page and allows us to manipulate or extract data from it using VBA. The next line does the heavy lifting of our code by directly fetching the hidden short description from Wikipedia. Here, the method getElementsByClassName is invoked on our doc object. This method searches the entire HTML document for elements that have the class name, short description. This part specifies that we want the first instance of elements with that class name. Computers start counting from 0, so 0 refers to the first element found. The inner text property extracts the text content of the chosen HTML element. So we are saying, get the inner text of the first HTML element that has the class name short description. Finally, we're taking all of that information we just extracted and assigning it to cell B2 in Sheet 2 of our Excel workbook. The final lines ie.quit and set ie equals nothing are vital for maintaining optimal performance in your VBA scripts. The ie.quit command ensures that the Internet Explorer application is properly closed. Failing to include this could lead to multiple instances of Internet Explorer running in the background, consuming system resources. And the set ie equals nothing line is a crucial part of resource management. In VBA, it's important to explicitly free up resources that you've used. Here, we're saying that we're done using the ie object, and it should be removed from memory. These lines may look unnecessary, but they're crucial for ensuring that your VBA code runs smoothly without hogging system resources or causing potential memory leaks. Always remember to include these lines when you're working with object variables like IE. Alright, we have dissected the code, so now it's time to see it in action. I'm going to go ahead and put a breakpoint at the ie.quit line in the code so that we have some time to observe what's happening and then run this VBA script. Pay attention to cell B2 in our Excel sheet. I will now resume the code, and here we go. Cell B2 is now populated with the hidden short description from the Wikipedia page. This gives us a glimpse into the power of using VBA to scrape web data directly into Excel. After successfully getting the hidden short description, let's go a step further and grab the first 2 paragraphs from the Wikipedia page of our search term. This will give us more detailed information right inside Excel. So let's move on to Module 2 and take a closer look at this improved VBA script. Before we dive into the code, I want to point out a few things. While this VBA script will allow us to grab the first 2 paragraphs from the Wikipedia page, it's important to know that it won't work perfectly for every search term. The reason is that different Wikipedia pages have slightly different HTML structures. We will use the word car for this example because its Wikipedia page has an HTML structure that aligns with our code. After we go through this, we'll move on to Module 3, where I've prepared a more flexible and robust version of this code. This improved script should work for most search terms. I'm breaking it down in steps like this to make the transition from simple to complex easier to follow. So let's get started with Module 2. The first 2 lines, dim IE as object and dim doc as object, are same as the ones we used in Module 1. They declare object variables for Internet Explorer and the HTML document we'll work with. We also declare 2 string variables, first _paragraph and second _paragraph, which will hold the text we extract from Wikipedia. Next, we have the familiar block of code where we create an Internet Explorer object and navigate to the Wikipedia page specified by the search term in cell A2 of Sheet 2. Just like in the previous example, we use a do-while loop to wait until the page fully loads before proceeding. After ensuring that the page has fully loaded, we set another object, doc, to represent the HTML document we're working with. Now comes the part that differs from our previous example. Instead of fetching a hidden short description, this time we aim to pull the first and second paragraphs from the Wikipedia page. To do this, we use this line of code. Now, let's pause for a moment and take a closer look at the actual Wikipedia page and inspect the HTML structure to see exactly where these paragraphs are located. As you can see here in the HTML, the text we want is located within the P tags, which denote paragraphs in HTML. These paragraphs are nested under a class called MWParserOutput. We'll use this structural information to dig into the HTML and extract the information we need. Alright, Let's switch back to our VBA code and see how to translate this HTML structure into a line of code that can pull these paragraphs for us. We're going to use this line of code to fetch the first paragraph. Let's break it down. This bit accesses all elements with the class MWParserOutput. The number 1 in parentheses specifies that we want the second occurrence of this class. Remember, counting starts from 0 in most programming languages, including VBA. Now you might be wondering why we chose the second occurrence of the class. The reason is, web pages often have multiple elements with the same class name but with different content. During my pre-testing, I found that the first occurrence didn't contain the data we wanted, while the second one did. This is a common situation you'll encounter in web scraping. You'll often have to experiment a bit to find the correct index that points to the data you're interested in. Tools like the Chrome Inspector can be incredibly helpful for this. It allows you to hover over different parts of the HTML code to see which part of the web page it corresponds to, helping you pinpoint the exact occurrence you need to target. Alright, now the second part of this line of code is focused on digging deeper into the HTML structure. After identifying which MWParserOutput element we want, we use getElementsByTagName to look for paragraph tags within that specific element. The number 1 in parentheses indicates that we're interested in the second paragraph tag. Again, remember that the indexing starts from 0, so 0 in parentheses would mean the first paragraph, 1 means the second, and so on. Finally, .InnerText is used to grab the actual text within that paragraph tag, essentially isolating the information we want to extract. This line of code is like giving a set of precise instructions. Go to this specific area, find this specific element, and then take this specific piece of data. Alright, now let's take a look at the next line. It might look a lot like the line for the first paragraph, and it is, with one small yet crucial difference. See that number 2 in the parentheses at the end? That tells the VBA code to grab the second paragraph instead of the first. In the array of paragraphs fetched, we specify 2 to indicate that we want the second paragraph to be stored in the second underscore paragraph variable. This small change demonstrates the flexibility of our code. With just a tiny tweak, we're able to get different pieces of content from the same web page. Isn't that cool? Great! Now that we've grabbed both the first and second paragraphs from the Wikipedia page, it's time to populate Excel with this fetched data. The next line performs this task for us. It combines the first and second paragraphs, then places the combined text into cell B2 of our sheet 2. This demonstrates how you can easily transport data from a web page right into your Excel sheet using VBA. Finally, the lines IE.quit and set IE equals nothing will close Internet Explorer and free up the resources. Once again, it's good practice to include these lines to ensure you're not leaving any stray instances of Internet Explorer running in the background, which could consume system resources. So all in all, this second module gives us a more complex example of what we can pull from a web page and place directly into Excel. We've moved beyond pulling the hidden short description and are now pulling visible textual content, specifically the first and second paragraphs. It offers a good balance of complexity without being too hard to understand. Alright, just as we did with the previous example, I'll go ahead and place a breakpoint on the line IE.quit. This will pause the code execution at that specific point, allowing us to observe what's happening. Doing this is particularly useful when running scripts like these that fetch data from the web because things can move pretty quickly. I'm going to run the code now. Observe how Internet Explorer opens, navigates to the Wikipedia page, and how the paragraphs are pulled into our Excel sheet. Once the code reaches the breakpoint, you'll see that the first and second paragraphs of the Wikipedia page for our search term are combined and filled into cell B2 on sheet 2. Let's run it and see this script in action. And here we go. As you can see, the code stops at the breakpoint. If you look at Excel, you'll notice that cell B2 now contains the first and second paragraphs from the Wikipedia page we specified. As I previously mentioned, it's important to know that this code won't work perfectly for every search term. Wikipedia pages have slightly different HTML structures, and sometimes the first and second paragraphs that we want to extract aren't as straightforward as simply using indices 1 and 2. We'll address these limitations in our next example. But before we move on, let's run this script one more time with a different search term. I'm going to enter cat into our search term cell and run the code. As you can see, we have hit a runtime error 91, indicating that the object variable is not set. This error occurs because the HTML structure for the search term cat doesn't align with our VBA code's current assumptions about where to find the first and second paragraphs. This serves as a reminder that web scraping can be quite tricky due to the varying structures of web pages. Now let's move on to our next example where we've enhanced the code to be more flexible. We will use a method that should work for most search terms. In this example, we have improved the previous code to work for a wider range of search terms by incorporating a loop that scans multiple instances of the HTML class until it finds the relevant paragraphs containing the search term. Firstly, you'll notice we've added a couple of new variables at the beginning of the script, a variable I, which is set to start from 1, and a variable maximum tries, set to 5. The variable I serves as our loop counter, initiating at 1, while maximum tries sets a cap on the number of iterations our loop will go through. This ensures that the code won't run indefinitely in case it can't find the desired information. In the loop structure, you'll notice this line, do while I is less than or equal to maximum tries. This initiates a loop that will run as long as I is less than or equal to maximum tries, in this case number 5. Inside the loop, we have the lines that fetch the first and second paragraphs. These lines look similar to our previous example, but notice that we've replaced the static 1 with variable I. The next line that we added examines if the initial paragraph has the keyword we're looking for. It employs the VBA in-string function to determine if our keyword appears in that first paragraph. Should the keyword be found, the loop is terminated using the exit do instruction. Otherwise, the counter variable I increases by 1 and the loop continues. By adding this loop and conditional check, our script is more resilient and adaptable to the varying structures of Wikipedia pages, particularly when it comes to locating the positions of the first and second paragraphs we are looking for. Alright, now, as for the rest of the code, it's almost the same as our previous example. One notable difference is the inclusion of on error go to 0. This line resets the error handling back to its default behavior. We have added this because we used on error resume next just before the loop. On error resume next allows the code to continue running even if it encounters an error, which is especially useful when we're looping through various HTML elements and may not find what we're looking for in the first few tries. However, once we exit the loop, we want to reset this behavior to catch any subsequent errors, hence the addition of on error go to 0. Alright, we've covered the modifications we made to the code to make it more versatile and adaptable to different Wikipedia pages. Now let's run this enhanced code to see it in action. Just like before, I'll place a stop on the IE.quit line so we can see what's going on in real time. And there we go. The code executed successfully, and we have our results in cell B2. You'll notice that this version of the code is more flexible and can handle a variety of Wikipedia page structures thanks to the loop and conditional check we added. Okay, we're now moving on to the final part of this tutorial. We'll enhance our existing code to pull information for not just one, but multiple search terms. To do this, let's add some new search terms into our Excel sheet. Now let's dive into the code and see how we can pull this off. I'll be making just a few simple additions and modifications to our existing code. The first change I'll be making is to introduce a for loop. This loop will iterate from 2 to 5, corresponding to the Excel rows where our search terms are located. So I'll add for a equals 2 to 5 at the beginning of our code where we navigate to the Wikipedia page. Then we have to close this loop. I'll add next a at the end of the code, just before we quit the Internet Explorer application. So, now there are just a few small changes we need to make to adapt this code for multiple search terms. The first change is modifying the IE.navigate line to target the cells in our loop. Now let's do the same for the rest of the relevant lines in our code. This will make the script automatically iterate through the range of search terms we've set up in the Excel sheet, from cell A2 to A5. And lastly, to ensure that our loop counter I is reset to 1 for each new search term, I will insert I equals 1 just before the end of the for loop. Great! Let's now run this modified code to see how it handles multiple search terms. I will add a 3-second wait for each iteration of the loop so that we can see what's happening in real time as the code runs. As you can see, our modified code now goes through each term, fetches the relevant paragraphs, and populates them into their respective cells in our Excel sheet. Isn't that amazing? This makes our code far more powerful and automated. And that is it for this tutorial. I hope you found it helpful and easy to understand. I encourage you to play around with the code yourself. Experimenting is the best way to learn. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe for more tutorials, and I hope to see you in the next video.